Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Worldviews. Today we have on James. James is a psychologist and host of Modern Day Debate, where people of all backgrounds engage in debates across numerous political, religious, and philosophical topics. James, thanks for coming on Worldviews.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
James, let's first start with how was Debatecon? I know that was a big conference you had last month.
It was amazing. The talent, like the speakers were our best yet. The quality of debates, of course, then were the best yet. And the film and audio was the best yet. So, yeah, just because we've gotten way more people, way more highly skilled people involved. So we were extremely happy with it.
How was the turnout I guess, how many people were there?
So I think for the religion debates day, we had about 200, which is fantastic. The previous all-time high for a single day was only about 100. So this was like a double. And politics day, we had a feeling would be less. And so that was maybe more like 86, but that's probably about normal for our politics day. So overall, better than average. We did have, despite the a few concerns about safety, we had a great turnout.
Okay, so your religious debates had twice as many as the political debates.
Yeah, which is ironic because that was the day that some people had concerns about the safety. And I think it's really because, one, we have just modern day debate. We have a stronger network with religion, atheism speakers. So we've got contacts that they have a much bigger followings on average compared to political speakers. The political speakers are so big, I think Sean Fitzgerald has like 350, 400,000 subscribers, but compared to people like David Wood that like figuratively speaking have like a million functionally, like because of his old channel, we definitely have had those debates were more popular.
Yeah, and also, if you don't mind, can we walk through what was the threat particularly? Wasn't there some kind of was it against I know that's the reason Alex O'Connor at least stepped out of the debate, is that correct?
Yeah, it was that prior to the debate, maybe 3 weeks before the conference, there were two gentlemen that were slated to debate at the conference. And they had a debate where basically in the debate, there was kind of a veiled threat that I don't know. I think that the speaker was just trying to intimidate and like look scary. I don't think he meant to have it be a threat as much as be intimidating. But nonetheless, it was like flying too close to the sun where like I told him I can't toast you. And that was what spooked some people. And yeah, we so that was during the remote debate, of course, that where the veiled threat happened.
Cool. Well, let's, I suppose, start from the beginning. First off, congrats on your success with all of it, but what inspired you to start modern day debate?
When I used to debate, because I enjoy debating, debating is more fun than moderating. I like moderating, don't get me wrong, but I used to debate and I would go on channels and sometimes find that hosts weren't always super neutral, where it sometimes was like very clearly systematically one host jumping in and like only defending the other side when there was like a questionable thing. And I was like, this is like not the way it's supposed to be. Like there's got to be some sort of official platform where it's like fully neutral and where you can have a debate and it means something if you were more persuasive because it wasn't because the moderator jumped in, it was just because you on your own merits were a better debater. And so that's why I started modern debate. It was more for like fellow debaters like myself than the audience because I thought, man, debaters, if they feel the same way as I do about going on here and feeling like it wasn't super fair, then I'm sure we're going to draw debaters. So that was like the major impetus for it.
And what topics did you used to debate?
Definitely religion topics, atheism topics like does God exist, stuff like that. I don't really politics is important, but it just never really drew the same type of intrinsic enjoyment for me as like religion, atheism, philosophy type debates.
Interesting. How did you grow up in terms of, I guess, your spiritual background? Did you grow up religious?
I was kind of like, I would say nominally Christian. So I would go to church every Sunday. I didn't know what it meant. And I also just kind of made up my own moral code that was conveniently like whatever I wanted to do and, that was right in my own eyes. And it wasn't until I was 20 in college that I became a Christian. And that's when there was kind of this change of like deep conviction over sin and trusting in Christ and starting to actually change my moral code to Christ rather than making up my own moral code.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. So what can I ask what denomination do you belong to, or are you non-denominational?
You could say Baptist. I'm not like a strict Baptist. It just happens to be like a Protestant, conservative theology. Like a lot of non-denominational Christian churches I'd be comfortable going to. Yeah.
Mm. So you used to debate a lot of atheists then?
I would say it was not a ton. Even on modern day debate, there are some old debates that are still there. Um, so yeah, before modern day debate, I always enjoyed debating as well. And I would, when it was modern day debate, is usually because like if someone couldn't make it because they were sick, I would just jump in and be like, I'll be the theist. And before that, though, like in college, I got hooked on. I loved to go to like atheist groups and debate and or Christian apologetics groups, talk about apologetics. I was hooked in college and loved listening to debates. So yeah, I would say it goes back pretty far. So there's like one old upload on Modern Day Debate. It was a debate for me in like 2014. So old school.
Dang, okay. I'm curious to hear because I imagine then in those early years you followed a lot of Christian apologists then.
Yeah.
Who were like your favorite ones?
I think William Lane Craig is still his debates online, I think, are probably the best debates. And then people like Norm Geisler, it tends to be the case that the best apologists, at least when it comes to like the broad questions of like, does God exist? Is Christianity true? Tend to be philosophers. And that's whether they be Christian or atheist. Philosophers tend to be, I think, the best. But yeah, yeah. So Craig, Geisler, James White, a little bit. Um, John Lennox, I enjoyed, and he has like a C.S. Lewis type aura and arguments. But Craig was always my favorite just because he's like high analytical type debater.
Yeah. Yeah, and when it comes to, I guess, modern day debate, do you have I mean, this is probably gonna be similar to, like, you picking out your favorite child, but what were the favorite debates you've ever moderated?
I'd say the one of my favorites was Inspiring Philosophy, Mike Jones against Matt Dillahunty. That was a like not only it was just everything about it was good. So good. It was probably the best debater from each side in terms of like online debaters. It was like just not only the best in terms of like reputation, or at least of the best, but also their arguments, like, very strong. It's just a very rigorous debate intellectually, and then also the production quality is fantastic. So that was one where we, did it in the studio there in Austin, and yeah, that is, like, still one of my favorites and definitely one of our most popular.
Okay, speaking of Matt Dillahunty, I have to ask about the Andrew Wilson, Matt Dillahunty thing. How was that? Because that was, like, a huge debacle. I think that actually played a huge catalyst for the current state of Andrew Wilson's, like, fame and his knownness to this day. But, can you just walk us through the temperature of that room and how that whole thing kind of went down in terms of the debate and how it kinda went south? I think he might have
Yeah.
said something that was kind of, that Matt Dillahunty took as disrespectful, and then things went, south.
Yes. Let's see. So, the temperature in the room, yeah, I was in pretty much disbelief when it all, like, happened as it did, and I would say it was a big, and I'm not, like, bothered by talking about it or rehearsing it. because it's just part of life, and you don't things just don't always go the way you hope. But it was like a huge, modern day debate seemed like it was in the middle, and people were either, like, super pro Matt or super pro Andrew, and if they were super pro Matt and these at least the vocal ones, right? Because there are a lot of, like, moderates who are probably actually would be like, "Yeah, I sympathize with modern day debate." But, like, so many people were, like, very vocal and that they supported Matt and thought modern day debate was, like, terrible. And then also Andrew. So it's not low that like, oh, but Andrew's people were like, yeah, way to go, Andrew, and way to go, modern day. It was like both sides were pissed at me and modern day debate. So and I don't, yeah, like I was trying to play the middle, uh, and there's just sometimes the way it falls. So that's okay. I don't have any hard feelings, and I don't. It's just part of the territory that you have to be ready to sometimes endure some punches in the face and just keep going. But it was definitely I don't think it would be I don't think it was that much of Andrew's, I don't think it was that much of a springboard for Andrew's success. I think that him going I think it was like a small step, and it, like, probably helped some. But it was, I think, like, coincidentally, like, a month later, he started going on, like, whatever podcast I think it was, and that was probably where he had, like, this massive growth where he started to have, like, 30,000 new subs a month or something. So I think it's maybe a small step, but just not that big.
Yeah, because even during that time, the audience at some point started to kinda debate him, and he started interacting with them a lot during that whole debacle, so it's I like, during that, I guess what goes through your head in terms of trying to calm down the audience while trying to keep the show going in terms of, like, not letting people leave and also not wanting the debaters themselves to get riled up enough to walk out the room, even though I believe Matt did within probably 5, 10 minutes of the whole issue escalating.
Yeah, it was so basically, like, Matt left, uh, and then I was there trying to salvage something because people had paid they got their ticket and they were like, "We are not gonna see a debate apparently." And even though it was like, well, it's like because Matt left, I nonetheless was, like, trying to provide at least as whatever we could and make the most of it. Which, I mean, yeah, people were pissed, and they were just very, like, if I remember right, like, not only were they, like, shouting up, at kind of, like, at the stage, they're like, some of them I think are, like, even standing, to where it was, like, just really boisterous, and like, we didn't have security at that time for that conference, so I, was, telling them, like, if I have to, I'll pull you out myself, because it really did feel like it could physically escalate almost, like, that's how hot it was in the room. But fortunately, people, like, took a deep breath, and then basically, yeah, it was just a matter of people asking questions to Andrew, for the rest of the 45 minutes or hour and a half, whatever it was. I think, yeah, and so it was certainly engaging for the audience.
Have you had anything like that come close to happening while hosting modern day debate throughout the history of the show?
Let's see. We had, like, one heated moment where it was, like, Matt Dillahunty and Daniel Hakikachu, a Muslim debater, that was, like, awkward and I think just kinda bluster where they were both trying to, like one of those, birds that'll, like, puff up their feathers to look bigger.
Yeah.
That happened where, like, during the debate, like, I don't know, I think Daniel said he was something like Matt told him to, like, "Shut up," and then Daniel's like, "Make me," or something, and then he said something like, "Come over here and say that," and then, like, Matt got up
Hmm.
and, like, walked over to him and, like, said it next to him, and it was just really awkward, and so, like, I had to, like, walk up and be like, "Alright, sit down." But it also felt like you knew that it was bluster, like, I didn't really think, like, this is gonna escalate, in the way that I worried it might with Andrew. That situation escalated way more quickly and just had way more energy because it wasn't just, like, 2 speakers, but it was like the audience was, like, bubbling up.
Mm, mm. Who do you think is the most skilled debater you've had on the show?
I think definitely some of the skills I think, I personally think that, like, let's see. You know, there are some that are, like, really skilled debaters, like Rob Noor is a conservative debater with a smaller following, but because he was on the college debate team, like, he really is a good debater and, like, a stellar debater, even if he doesn't have a big audience because he maybe just doesn't get to stream as often or something like that. So, while acknowledging I think, because yeah, if you have that experience, like, that's super valuable, and even if you don't though, like, there are some debaters that are fantastic, like Mike Jones is one of my favorites I've already mentioned, where because Mike will prepare for anything so that no stone is left unturned, he like, anything that comes up, he will have an answer for it during the debate. I think that's what makes so, like, winning a debate is won during the many hours of preparation rather than, like, the 2 hours that you're on stage. And Mike Jones so it's just like a sporting event. And Mike Jones, yeah, he really does put that time in, so that I think he's probably the best, debater there is in terms of other debaters, like, maybe if they put as much time as Mike, but Mike would maybe even tell you you over-prepare. So I would say he's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that too. The whole what makes a great debater besides the obvious skills of confidence, and obviously on top of that's preparation. But what other skills could you nail down that makes someone a great debater?
I think that so, your preparation, your confidence for sure does make a difference, like how loud you are, how much you're projecting your voice and your kind of your conviction in what you're saying. Being quick on your feet in terms of kind of recognizing like the right salute, like having it come to mind fast and you can say it fast. There are like bell and whistle type things that like the research wouldn't suggest they're like as important, but they probably like from an entertainment perspective. And if you want, that's the thing is like Andrew Wilson is more, he's a very entertaining person to watch. Part of that because he might have like cheeky remarks that are funny sometimes or just entertaining generally. And I mean, from a practical standpoint, like that will get you more eyeballs listening to your debates. Obviously, you still have to have good arguments, and you can have both, obviously. So I would say the biggest things though are probably just being well prepped so you have an answer for everything. Maybe you because you there are just certain areas that if you do study enough, like you'll probably have everything covered. In my experience, at least. Like there are only just so many arguments that you could usually come up. If someone comes up with like an original argument of their own, like you're debating Bob, and Bob comes up with his own argument, it's probably just either already been made, if it's any good, or it hasn't already been made and probably not very good. Like, yeah. So I would say prep is the biggest thing.
What makes a great moderator?
I think not speaking as much as you might feel like. So a lot of self regulation to not take sides and also to try to keep the speakers the spotlight. That's really big because I would say, in my opinion, I think what's made modern day debate fun too. Now, people disagree, and that's okay. But we haven't been ashamed about the fact that we've wanted to grow. And part of that is like we're not super formal. We might have like some somewhat formal branding and stuff and try to look kind of formal and official. But at the same time, like we'll let debaters say pretty much anything within YouTube terms of service. And there's very little of me, like, interjecting, unless there's interrupting, that kind of defeats the purpose of you can't hear either debater if they're both talking at the same time. But otherwise, you pretty much let anything go. I mean, like, it's like the Wild West to some extent. And I actually like, a lot of people criticize modern day debate for that. Obviously, that's only a problem if the debaters are gonna run roughshod. If they aren't, which most of the time they aren't, they're gonna be pretty within reason. it's not even a factor. But in the cases, even when it is, and you kind of let them have a long leash and it gets kind of like, oh, it seems like it's going off the rails a little bit. I think as a channel as a whole, it's certainly probably one of the reasons why modern day debate has grown at a really fast pace compared to some of these older brands that have been around for way longer, is that it's certainly spontaneous and organic. And I think that makes a difference in terms of entertainment. I think it's personally, it's good for a moderator to have a more laissez-faire position.
Do you think being a moderator has this might be a stupid question, but do you think being a moderator has to some degree made you a better debater?
I think that I've, like, probably not as much as maybe one would think, because I can't listen. It's hard to listen to all the arguments, because if I'm, like, can't paying attention to, like, the chat, looking for questions for Q&A that people are submitting, or also, here's a big one, I'm trying to keep track of, like, who's talking more. Because if it is, like, one person is talking way more than the other, then I should jump in and try to balance it a little bit. I also might be paying attention for, like, how many times one person's interrupted versus another. Because after a while, if they do it, like, then I'll start to jump in if I notice, like, this person's doing it way more than the other. So I'm, like, paying attention to these, like, meta variables, like, that aren't focusing on the content per se. So I actually don't get to pay attention as much. So I don't learn, like, I don't get to I do learn some arguments, I do hear them sometimes, I'm like, "Oh, man, that's interesting, I never heard of that." And then, like, yeah, I suppose I see different styles, but I think that the research is nonetheless, yeah, so anyway, I don't think it helps that much. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Maybe
I was gonna say, I was like, "Doesn't sound like it helps too much." Okay, we
specializing
said
in something, yeah, is what makes you better at it.
yeah. Okay, we mentioned the most skilled debater. Who do you think is the most intelligent debater? And I mean that in terms of intelligent by who, I guess, kinda wowed you the most by their intellect?
Huh, let's see. I'm trying to, let's say, I suppose probably what would be most impressive is sometimes when a person has, like, a really quick off the cuff response. I will say, like,
Mhm.
I am sometimes impressed by, like, the rhetoric of Andrew Wilson, that it's very quick and off the cuff, and I kinda wonder, I'm like, how much of this is ad lib versus prepared? And so I will admit that, like, as a rhetorician, Andrew Wilson is, like, unmatched. And that is being a rhetorician is intelligent. It's a form of it, like, and it's like a downstream consequence of being highly intelligent. So, it's not synonymous with intelligent, but yeah, it's certainly, you need to be smart to be a great rhetorician, I think. And, without cheating and thinking of, like, famous economists that we've hosted or something like David Friedman, um, I don't know. There's also, like, yeah. So I will admit, Andrew Wilson is bright, and like I said, not just in his rhetoric, but his arguments are actually, he will do a good job in his arguments as well.
Mm. What would you say is your dream debate to host?
It used to be, I always worry this sounds almost unloyal. That it would maybe be that I would usually say, like, oh, if it was like William Lane Craig and like Richard Dawkins, like, that would be cool because that was, like, the debate everybody wanted 10 years ago, and, the only bad thing is that it's kind of like those guys are not, and this isn't, like, an insult to them, I think that they'd say the same thing. They're not really the future of debating, they've basically both stepped away from debating to a major extent. Like, they seem to be kind of retired from it. And so that makes me think that, like, the future would be in the hands of, like, you know, David Wood, Mike Jones, Andrew Wilson types, Alex O'Connor. So now, like, a dream debate would probably be, it's hard to think of what hasn't been done. Um, I do actually at the same time, it's like I get how content creators are, like, appealing, uh, but at the same t like, there are some professional philosophers that do have a presence online, like Graham Oppy is an atheist philosopher who's brilliant, like, literally brilliant, and that's one thing that drives me a little bit crazy. Sometimes people say, like, "Oh, this content creator is brilliant," and I'm like, I don't know if they're brilliant. They're smarter than the average person, but, like, brilliant seems a little bit like hero worship or something. It just sounds to me, it sounds probably, cynical or something, but I like it. But Graham Oppy's brilliant. Like, his impact in the field of philosophy as a scholar is, like, phenomenal. So, if it was a debate with, like, Graham Oppy and William Lane Craig, I have to say that still appeals to me even though Craig might be kinda retired from debating. They have crossed swords before, I think. It
Yeah,
was like a discussion,
yeah,
but
yeah.
like a formal debate, in person, well promoted, like, that's something that would be, like, really cool and epic. Not to say that their exchange they've already had wasn't cool, but yeah.
Yeah, Graham's a good choice, especially since William and Craig described him as scary smart, and when someone like William and Craig calls someone else scary smart, that's when you know that's a legitimate brilliant mind that's
Right.
among us.
Yeah. It's strange that not all, like, some atheists are very plugged into the scholarly work of atheists, but man, some atheists are, like, almost, like, dismissive of people like Graham Oppy in preference for their favorite YouTuber who's not, like, a
Really?
scholar or something, which is to me, it's just, like, it's so anti-intellectual and backward. Because like I said, it's not that there aren't atheists who are on YouTube or smart and have like, it's worth listening to. I agree. Like understand their arguments and they're smart people. But like at the expense of like being familiar with professional philosophers and kind of like they'll sometimes like it's at like pockets of atheists, and I don't see this among theists among atheists, sometimes they'll even write off philosophy altogether, and they'll say it's like word salad and like the just like philosophy, they're like, "Oh, I love science." Just pockets of atheists, not all.
Sure. I think that's a the reason that that is, I think it's because Jordan Peterson, because I see a lot of disregard for Jordan Peterson because of his quote unquote word salad, especially since using what you just said, uh, for when he debated Matt Dillahunty, Jordan Peterson versus Matt Dillahunty. All the comments from the atheist world were all saying how Jordan Peterson just talks in circles and just puts up a bunch of word salad, doesn't say anything actually intellectual. I think that's where it stems from, what you're coming from with the whole they kind of look down on philosophy.
Yeah, I think that you're right to a large extent, although, um, it's just strange that they only categorize Jordan Peterson as philosophy because Matt Dillahunty, most of what he says is, you could say, like, it's couched in philosophy, like epistemology, metaphysics. So I agree with you, like, and I frankly think sometimes, like, it's hard to follow what Jordan Peterson's saying, where I'm like, I don't it seems like he's thinking out loud more than that he's articulating, like, some thought through system. So I get that at the same time, like, and then, like I said too, I mean, the problem of evil, which like so many atheists love, and I'm sure that I would guess that these atheists who say like, "Oh, philosophy is stupid," or "It's word salad," like a lot of them, if you like later on in the conversation when they forgot that they just said that, they'll tell you like, "Oh, problem of evil, yeah, it's a knockdown argument for theism, even though it's a philosophical argument." I think a lot of people, yeah, there's a lot of inconsistencies among people in general, not just atheists.
So then would you disagree that the problem of evil, the problem of suffering is the best argument against God? Would you disagree with that?
Hmm. I think it's in the scholarly world, and personally, like my own opinion is that it is one of the strongest. And so I want to be clear, like I'm not dissing philosophy. Like I actually
Sure.
think that for example, the problem of evil is a philosophical argument. It's really, especially the evidential one, that has kind of become like the new argument that Alex O'Connor has been focused on lately. So, like when William Rowe, yeah, it was. So you had J.L. Mackie, who famous atheist made the problem of evil like this juggernaut, hard argument for theists, and then Plantinga came along later on, decades later on, and started like kind of saying, hey, the party's not over. And then William Rowe, his evidential type of argument for the problem of evil, I think, is harder for the theist to handle, but the classic problem of evil's hard as well. So I would say those are certainly probably the toughest. I mean, there are like incoherence of theism, where you like try to pit God's omnipotence against his omniscience or something. Those are like worthy arguments. They're not dumb. And then this doesn't say much, but so like those are strong. They're tough arguments for theists to deal with. And then for Christians, the Trinity. This is what's funny is that Muslims will attack the Trinity, but atheists rarely do, even though like among atheist scholars, like the Trinity is like a major like target for Christian theism. Like atheist scholars in the philosophy of religion world, they will attack the Trinity without mercy, because it is a hard thing for Christians to defend. So that would be a Christian thing per se, rather than general theism. But so for Christians, I would say the Trinity is really tough, along with the problem of evil.
Mm. Does it surprise you speaking of Islam, does it surprise you that I think 3 of your 4 most watched videos of all time are all debates involving Muslims?
It is interesting. Um, it was like a fresh new genre for modern day debate and kind of for the internet, because as Daniel Hakikachu had told me, like since 2001, most Muslims were afraid of appearing combative in any way, even debating. So like the Muslim community was like very much like, just let them debate, let the Christians and the atheists debate. Like we're going to be like, hey, we'll give lectures, we'll make our case, but we're not doing debates. Anything combative we want to avoid. And that's, like I said, Daniel telling me that. And then he said, though, like, but eventually it came a time where it was like, we've been sitting out for too long. Like, we have to be in this. And it doesn't surprise me in the sense that Islam is allegedly, like, it's up for debate whether or not it's Islam or Christianity that's growing faster. I think the broad conventional view is that Islam is, but then there have been sociologists like Rodney Stark, who's argued that Christianity was growing faster in his most recent book before he passed away, I think. So, in either case, if Islam is even just close to Christianity in terms of its growth, then it's highly relevant for both atheists and Christians. So I think it draws pretty much everybody. It's all because partly because it's new, something different rather than Christian versus atheist all the time. But also because like David Wood recognizes like Christianity's main problem globally is not atheism, it's Islam. And by problem, I don't mean like enemy. I mean like if we want to win people for Christ as Christians, Islam is trying to win them over for Allah. So, and then for atheists, yeah, of course, it's a major concern because it's like, hey, if it's outgrowing Christianity, then why would you not consider it your primary concern?
Yeah, that's a good point, especially since I've heard that Islam is the fastest growing, but it's by birth rate, not necessarily conversions, which when it's put that way, it's like, "Oh, that makes a lot more sense." Uh,
Right. I think
but
that's
yeah,
what brought, yeah.
when it comes to debates too, I think because that's an interesting point about him saying that up until 2001, they were not into debating. Is that what you said? That Islam wasn't as much the culture of Islam wasn't much into debating up until 2001?
Oh, it was starting approximately in 2001. So it was like kind of, I guess from according to Daniel, it was, because of the World Trade Center incident,
Yeah,
Uh, that's why a lot of Muslims are like, "Hold on a second, like, do we wanna be, like, debating, or do we instead want to take less adversarial approaches to evangelism?"
I see. I see. Okay, because now I'm feeling like Judaism is kind of the black sheep between atheism, Christianity, and Islam when it comes to debating. I don't see as many Jewish debaters kind of going into it. The only one like, the biggest one I've noticed is probably Rabbi Tavaya, but besides him, I don't know if there's anyone else that's kinda doing it to that scale, unless you know more.
Yeah, I think you're right that it was never really big, and namely, like, Jewish apologetics, if you wanna call it that, and I'm trying to remember, Shmuley Boteah, he had a debate, if I'm saying his name right, against William Lane Craig, and then I think who you had just mentioned, Tovia, I can't remember the name,
Rabbi Tavaya, yeah. Tavaya Singer.
I think he may have
They
also.
debated a long time ago.
Yeah. So, it was, like, once in a so that given that there were, like, only 2 debates over Craig's career that I know of, maybe he had another with a Jewish, apologist, it's like, given how many decades that was spread over, like, it seems like it's never been a super popular, because Judaism's not really concerned with evangelism. That's probably part of it. You did see, like, Shmuley Boteah, I think, debate, like, Hitchens, maybe. So, like, sometimes you would see, like, theist, reformed not reformed, Orthodox Jews that were debating, like, Christopher Hitchens, atheists, but that was still rare too. And now, yeah, so yeah, it's still very rare.
Yeah, and what's also interesting to me is you're kinda like, do you know Justin Brierley?
Yeah,
He hosts the show Premiere Unbelievable. He used to host the show. You 2 are
yeah,
very similar, obviously, in your moderation of these really existential topics, and he just wrote a book called What I've Learned Through 20 Years of Witnessing Debates Between Atheists, Christians, Skeptics, all that. I'm
yeah.
curious to hear from you too. What have you learned from years of moderating debates and engaging in these debates as well about people, both sides of the God debate, both si all the sides of the religious debates, and so on.
Yeah, I'm so curious. Well, one, like, I like Justin Brierley a lot. He was kind of like an inspiration in a way because I used to listen to Unbelievable all the time. And also, did you get to read his book? I'm curious about it. Like, is that what it's about?
I did I
Just
didn't get to read his book, but I had him on here, like, last week, and so I talked to him about, that whole experience, and I remember the first thing he said was I asked him the same question I just asked you because I was like, "Why not shoot the elephant in the room?" And he said that Christianity can absolutely stand on its own 2 feet. And then he went on to I believe he was talking about what the biggest, I guess, attacks are for both Christianity and atheism in terms of the best arguments against both of them. But my biggest takeaway with that topic in that conversation was the fact that he was hitting on the fact that Christianity evidentially, intellectually can absolutely stand on its own 2 feet versus all these other worldviews.
yes, I think
Specifically atheism, I'd say.
I already believe that, like, I've learned things from hosting debates, but that's the one that I, like, pretty firmly believed already. You could say I believe it more strongly because 'cause it's been years long now that I've seen the phenomenon that I'm about to describe. Before I started modern day debate, I would say even by the time that I was, like, maybe a few years out of college, so, like, I don't know, mid-20s, I was, like, very convinced that Christianity could stand on its own and even that it, like, has the best case that can be made. And that's because I listened to William Lane Craig debates so many times because I
Yeah.
always interpreted those as, like, there were some where it was, like, a really close match, but generally, like, he would clearly win, and there were only a few where it was like, "Oh, yeah, it was actually kinda close." So, I guess there's something really valuable and impactful about seeing objections raised to your position and then seeing them cleverly rebutted, which is what William Lane Craig debates have done for me. Is that and that also there's, like, research that shows that, like, yes, that will, like, entrench a belief, that'll make it stronger to where it has this, like, concrete staying power. And for me, that was what I got from William Lane Craig, and long before I started hosting the debates. I think it's probably increased since then, but only incrementally because it was, you kind of have this curve where it like goes up significantly and then it kind of starts to like curve and plateau at the top, right? So the things I've learned, I kind of gotten a kick out of like some of the like peripheral, like meta type things, like the tribalism in people's thinking is, I should say, some people's. There are different degrees to which people are impacted by this. But there are big pockets where, like I said, in every group, not just atheists, like Christians, like whoever, where they will like, oh, that person's brilliant. And, or they sometimes like think really highly of the person. And like, we don't know them as well as we think that we do.
Mm,
I'm saying, well, I would say first, I do think it's generally true that like it's certainly correlated if they are like a pleasant person on screen and they're like, handling themselves well in a debate, that's correlated with being like that in real life. Real life. Like, but at the same time, there have been people that where it was like, wow, like it's not what I expected them to be like, where, I don't want to name names to sully anybody, but there have been
sure.
some people where it was like, it's just kind of like that they kind of tricked everybody, like, everybody really loved them and thought like, "Oh, this person's awesome," and then but it was like they weren't really that, likable when you found out something that like skeletons that came out of the closet later or something. That's rare, to be fair. But like I said, I think just kind of like hero worship sometimes of like yeah, the other thing too is like, really amateur people have difficulty admitting that there are bad arguments for their view. Which is, like, to me, a totally innocuous fact about the world, like, there are a lot of arguments for Christianity that I don't think are very good at all, like, they're just really bad,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah,
okay, that doesn't mean there aren't good ones, like so, like, as Christians, like, we should feel comfortable saying that, but, like, sometimes, like, amateurs, they wanna, like, defend anything that's pro their view, and they have trouble, like, differentiating and saying, "Okay, yeah, there might be some weak arguments, like, there's some strong ones too." So that's like maybe a phenomenon, and that might just come with maturity. There's also like opposite hero worship. Oh, you might call it like the halo effect or something too. But there's opposite of those, kind of this like they're the bad guy. Anything they say is suspect or something. And I'm like, that's not good either. So those that just kind of tribalism stuff, like that's interesting to me. I've yeah. People want it easy. When I've recommended here's another thing I've learned because like, when they have said like, "Oh, this is the best YouTuber," and I'm like, "They're smart, I agree, but, like, you could read William Rowe," who's like the famous atheist who, if I remember right, in the '70s, he had came up with the, inductive problem of evil, the probability-based one, evidentiary, sometimes it's called, and, like, amazing paper, like, it's very, so well written, it's just a strong argument, but they don't wanna do that, and I'm not saying you have to, but, like, I'm guilty of it too, you want the easiest way of getting something, but, like, there aren't maybe you could find lectures online, that go into detail on William Rowe's argument. That's, good too, but, yeah, people usually want the easy way. And that's too bad because, like I said, there's this whole world of, like, published literature that is much more sophisticated, much more rigorous intellectually. But like I said, I'm guilty of it too. I shouldn't be so hard on people.
yeah, it's interesting. I also wanted to say, so you really believe William Lane Craig's undefeated when it comes to debates? Or at least any debate he's almost at the very least, it's only been when he's either won by a landslide or it's been, like, kinda 50-50?
I think there were a couple where I was like, "Okay, maybe he did lose," but they were close. It's not like he got
Yeah,
blown out of the
sure.
water, and I remember them. But like I said, most, like 90%, I'm like, "That looks like a
Yeah.
decisive victory," and then there were 2 where it's like Shelley Kagan from Yale. where
That one was interesting. That
yeah,
guy was charismatic.
yeah, where it's like, okay, I can't use it. I don't think I couldn't say Craig won it, and, like, maybe he did lose it. It was at best a stalemate. Well, a stalemate at best for Craig against, like I said, an ethicist from Yale, a professional philosopher who, like, if even if you did lose, it's like that's really hard to prep, given that was Shelley Kagan's specialization, and Shelley Kagan was also considered, like, one of the best in the field at that point, if I remember right. Or, like, Keith Parker, like, a really good debater. Um, I think that yeah, so there were, debates where I was like, I would not argue Craig won, but most I would say he won.
Yeah, yeah. I think in Craig's offense for the Shelley one, I believe he was told that that was supposed to be a discussion and not a debate, and I think Shelley approached it in a debate format, so they're kinda doing 2 different games here. Uh, and then the other one was, I think I would say he probably lost to Sean Carroll because they're debating cosmology, I
Yep,
believe, which is similar to the Shelley thing. You're kinda debating someone at their own wheelhouse.
yep.
So it's extremely hard to win those kind of debates when the expertise is on the other end.
It is. You're totally right. David Wood, I was talking to him recently about a possible debate with, Bart Ehrmann, and he said, he's like, "I would need, like, a ton of prep because if Bart starts appealing to the Greek, he's an expert in that, and, like, I just wouldn't be able to like, I'd have to have way more prep." So, yeah, I think you're right. When they can rely on their own authority and it just makes a massive difference.
Wait, have you reached out to Bart for a debate? To debate someone else for modern day debate?
We are working on a potential debate, and this is like it's only being discussed of a debate between Bart and David Wood, and then a debate also between Bart and Mike Jones. So
Mm.
yeah, so that might happen this fall, Lord willing. But it's still that they haven't said yes. It's more that I'm like hoping to get them venue options by the end of the week to see like, hey, is this a venue we'd both be happy with? Stuff like that.
You know, it'd be even that could be even just as good maybe, would be Bart Ehrman versus Wes Huff.
Yeah, I think it definitely could be, and I would like to invite Wes Huff, and I even reached out, like, after his epic debate with Billy to say, like, "Hey, that's awesome, man, way to go." But I don't wanna reach out until probably 1, it's, like, set to be practical, until it's, like, settled down because right now he's probably got a billion invites, and 2, I think you're right, if we can find the right topic, him versus Barterman would be legendary.
Yeah, because Bart's, like, the poster boy for I mean, he kinda is the poster boy for atheism right now just because anytime you have like, one of the best atheist debaters are those that were once Christian, that's what I've found, I think, besides, like, Graham Oppie. But a lot of them, like Matt Dillahunty, Bart Ehrman, Dan Barker, like, those guys are very good usually because they understand, obviously, the other side and the biblical narratives and all these different things. Uh, Dan
Yeah.
Barker could be another one if he still debates at all. I'm not even sure if he does.
Let me write that down, actually. I'm glad you said that because I hadn't thought of that for Debatecon, but that's something that maybe we could get. Um,
Who, Dan?
yeah.
Yeah, he'd be good, especially since I respect his charisma. I'll say that because I watched him against Trent Horn, and that was like verbally violent. They didn't like. It was just very intense. I guess you could say. Probably one of the more intense ones I've seen. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I haven't seen that, but I wanna watch it. I didn't know that is this recent or was it a while ago?
This was a while ago, I think, but it was like between watching that Trent versus Dan, and also Trent versus Richard Carrier. I respected Trent a lot more when it comes to debates. First of all, because he's extremely good at it. But two, both those were just very, oh my gosh, just so intense, so intellectually stimulating. Just oh my, it was very incredible. Yeah, Trent would be a good one too to get. If you guys ever did some kind of, I don't know if you guys do any type of inter-Christian debates, like a Catholic versus a Protestant or anything like that, but that might be worth your while too.
I do wanna have Trent on. I didn't know he debated Carrier too. Was that recent or long ago?
I think that was a little long ago too. Because those Catholic Answer guys, those guys are they're intellectually dangerous. Like the Bart Ehrmann versus Jimmy Akin, like, oh my gosh. I haven't seen really Bart be challenged like he was in that debate, but Jimmy Akin, I think, actually beat him handily. Not really handily, but it was close. But Jimmy Akin, I still think got the upper hand. He was incredible.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm encouraged to hear that. Yeah, I knew about Trent, and I hadn't seen Jimmy debate yet, but I knew that Trent is like a baller, like stellar debater, and I've been wanting to get him on. So that's cool though that Jimmy is as well.
Yes, I would say out of all the people I've interviewed, I usually tell my friends this, but I'll say this live. Jimmy's probably the smartest guy I've ever interviewed, and I probably recognized that within 20 to 30 minutes of the conversation. It was he's like the William Lane Craig, the Ray Moppy scary smart thing. That's how I felt about Jimmy. It was just like I just felt like my intellect to his, like I was like a 22 overall, he was like a 99. It was just so different in levels. He was incredible.
That's cool. Huh. That's rad.
Cool. But we can get back to the interview. But yeah, what other topics too do you want to cover in the future? I feel like you've I imagine you've covered all the philosophical ones that you want to cover, a lot of political ones. Are there any other topics that you want to look into?
There
Even like
probably
fun ones? Because I think did you guys do it? You did a flat Earth one too, didn't you?
I mean, we've done a lot of flat earth ones.
Yeah.
And as we say, we're gonna be open-minded and host anything, like, if people really wanna make a case for it, like, okay, you gotta be consistent with our philosophy. But I would say, really, I wanna return more to we haven't had a lot of Muslim debates in a while. So,
Mm,
like, the last year, it's been kinda slow that way. And then I would say we've had some, but I do see right now this kind of rise in interest in Christianity, and it's, like, not at the level of, like so these Christian atheist debates are still popular, they all still have potential still. There's also, like, this new genre of apologetics. There's, like, the old guard, like David Wood, Mike Jones, and then there's kinda, like, this new genre of debaters, which is basically, like, the Andrew Wilson crew that are much more aggressive, and it's very interesting to watch because, they're kind of like you see some borrowing from each other's books, like
mhm,
and that's I think that can be okay. I think, like, the old guard, um, they don't have to be more assertive. Some guys could probably be much more assertive, but, like, strong ones like Mike and David Wood, they are the appropriate amount of, being assertive where they won't let someone steamroll them. They could be more assertive if they want, and I think it would be, like, still within the bounds of Christian, you know, reasonableness. But they don't have to. Same thing with Trent Horn. Like, they don't have to. Like, they have the right degree where they're just enough to where they, like, won't let people walk on 'em. And that's needed. Like, if a Christian debater doesn't have that, they've gotta muster that up. But then there's, like, Andrew Wilson types that are, like they're that and then more. They're more on the offense too. And, like, they'll push and needle more and, like, even, like, subtle insults that, like, within reason, I think can still work within a Christian ethic. And it's possible in any case to go too far, but it's interesting to watch. It's also fresh and different, and yeah, there's just this, atheism and secular humanism have lost their footing so much, and to a significant degree, it's not just Mike Jones and his debates against, like, is Christianity dangerous, but also, like, these Andrew Wilson debates and his crew that have really put secular humanists on their heels. So that, yeah, people take it way less seriously now compared to 10 years ago, let's say. Part of
yeah,
that Go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna say part of it is probably because, like, some of the they're picking out certain cases of secular humanism and they're saying like, "Hey, what do you think about this trans stuff?" That are like not super popular with moderates. And and then they're like, drilling deep on that and saying, "So, do you defend it or what?" And that's one reason. But what were you
Mm.
gonna say?
Oh, no, I was gonna say what you're describing is how I feel against, what's happening to Islam too. Even despite the fact that it's growing, like we said, because of birth rates, it seems like since there's more almost counter anti-Islam apologetics happening, as you see with David Wood or even IP or, there's another few guys that do a lot of street preaching as well and openly look for Muslims to engage with, uh, debate, have discussions, all these things, which is really putting Islam in an interesting light because I think more information about what the religion stands for is more coming to light. Uh, that's what I've been noticing as well, especially since the gentleman, Apostate Prophet, who's like this very large YouTuber who was he was at Debatecon as well. He debated I forgot who he debated, but I don't even know if it was he
Gnostic
debated
informant.
Gnostic Informant, that's what it was. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, but yeah, even the fact that he recently converted to Christianity is extraordinary, especially since where he was doing going from being Muslim, then doing a YouTube channel, being, more educational for what Islam stands for, his experience, counter Islam apologetics, and then going to atheism, and then Christian now. It just seems like there is this kind of I don't know, it feels like Islam's being put on notice right now.
Yeah. It does look like Christianity looks really strong right now, and Islam looks like it's on its heels too. Yeah, there are less Muslims willing to come out and debate, um, Islam per se. So you will see more debates like from hijab on like Palestine and Israel, but I
Mhm.
don't really see him doing debates on Islam. I don't really see a lot of, I think that Daniel Hakikachu is a great debater. I think he's better than hijab, but he's also been very busy this last year. So I think he does plan on returning, which I'm looking forward to those debates. Um, so that's kind of one reason I'm probably seeing is a little bit slower. And then it's also tough because it's like, man, it's like, but that might be the fact that Daniel Hakikachu is like constantly the one that has to debate David or Apostate Prophet or Mike Jones.
Yeah.
Probably a sign that Islam is on its heels because it's like that's the only good debater that like is showing up. So even when he is active, like yeah, it doesn't look very active right now. It's almost like in a small, subtle retreat. And but yeah, Christianity is like flourishing and for example, apostate prophet converting, like a really
Mm.
big sign. So among other things. But it is cool to see Trent Horn. I am excited about Trent Horn. Another thing that's by the related, the relations it seems like between Catholics and Protestants are much warmer compared to 10 years ago. Is
Mhm.
it just me? I feel like 10 years ago or so, it was like maybe it was just the really conservative Protestant circles that I would hang out. It seemed like they would keep each other more clearly at arm's length. But now I think that there's just like more warmer relations and like a respect, especially which is probably like a little bit lagging 10 years ago, where Protestants probably didn't have enough respect for Catholicism's both current and past rich intellectual presence.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
think that
Yeah.
that's now Protestants are kind of like admitting that, and that's good because it is just true. Um, but do you sense that like relations are warmer? Is it just me?
Oh, no, I totally agree, and the intellectual sides of Catholicism, I totally agree with as well. It's kinda like I think it was around 7 years ago maybe, where, Bill Nye debated Ken Ham, who's a pastor, and it was like a landslide because Ken Ham's trying to debate Bill Nye about God's existence and whatnot, only using the Bible, no philosophical arguments. Uh, and in that manner, it's kinda like, well, if you took the best Catholic mind at the time, or even like a top 5 Catholic mind to debate that same topic, you probably would've had wiped the floor with Bill Nye. But the Catholics engage it seems to be this way. The Catholics engage with all these philosophical arguments for God, all these atheism attacks very early on before, I guess, the Protestants really had a good gauge of how to go about it. But I definitely think the sort of companionship amongst the two has been much better in the last 10 years, as you said, because of more education of what Catholicism actually stands for, and the fact that us Protestants at times did not understand the Catholics, didn't ask questions, and just had these kind of preconceived notions about what they stand for, that being things such as, "Oh, they pray to Mary," or the literal body and blood in Christ, no way, can't be that, or all these other things that are just not exactly true in our intellect versus the actual reality of what they believe in.
Yes. Catholic apologetics has just burgeoned so strongly that those issues, yeah, there are fewer of those, like, misunderstandings and things, and it's cool that, yeah, like, people like Trent Horn, I'm excited about his success, like, I like watching Trent debate, so he's a cool guy as well, like, my personal experience with him is, like, really friendly, cool person, and it's an encouraging time. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah. What what do you think is the most challenging part of hosting modern day debate? I'm talking about things that kind of maybe even go on beyond the scenes. Is it I imagine it's very hard logistically setting up in general, but even just the challenges of perhaps maybe even convincing people to come on. But can you kind of lay out what those challenges are that we don't really see?
Yeah, let's see. One challenge that I have to deal with, and it's just because 'cause they're human, so I don't really, I think I'm pretty, like, understanding about it, it's just something that I have to work around, and I just feel like, "Oh, okay, that happened," is that sometimes debaters don't like each other, and they get in fights other places besides modern day debate, so on Twitter or wherever, and so if I try to set up a debate, like, they're like, "Oh, they have bad blood already," like, it's like, "Don't try to set it up now. We'll just wait, maybe a few months they'll be open to it, maybe even a few years or something." That's one thing for sure that can make it hard for me, um, is if they have a conflict. I would say the cool thing, uh, so, like, different groups have different Christians seem to be so intrinsically motivated to make their case, which kinda makes more sense that they would have more intrinsic motivation, like, they're motivated because they wanna share the gospel, they wanna share Christianity with people. But, like, if you're an atheist, and you might think like, "Oh, but Christianity is bad for the world." It's like, but then if you see these debates, like with Mike Jones on that topic, if you're in any way reasonable, it's like, is it that bad? Like, is it a net bad?
Mhm.
But then the other thing too is like, also, is it like, never seen, I don't, not as far as I know, it's just very unlikely that you're going to have like a majority atheist Western world. So it's like, if it's not Christianity that's like the majority, it's probably going to be Islam. And so it's kind of like, well, is Christianity worse than that? So like, I don't know, atheists, I just don't know if they have the kind of the belief structure framework to be motivated to do these debates. And so, like, Christians are, like, more intrinsically motivated, and then to get some big name atheists, not all, but some, like, you gotta pay them.
Mm.
Uh, and so that's, like, which is okay because their time is valuable. They have other work that they're not doing if they're preparing for the debate. So, like, I understand, I'm not saying they're bad people for that. It's just that, like, when you get into the upper echelons, I'm learning that it also, like, you're, like, looking for debaters where it, like, costs $1,000 or something, and, there are some out there, and then, like, maybe, like, 2 grand or something. But then, like, it goes up fast where it's like, "Oh, this person wants 5 grand minimum." So it's like, you just jump up there, and then it's like, "Well, this person wants 10 grand minimum." Like, it just, like, has this, like, kind of exponential, like, takeoff where, like, this is, to get Dawkins, who's retired from debating, but this is just what I've heard, is that it would be like 6 figures to get Dawkins to do a debate. So, it's just insane. It's like, how is that gonna be profitable for anybody? Like, what promoter how could I possibly sell enough tickets to get that to work? Like,
I'm
even if I
surprised
had a
that
venue.
I was just gonna say, I'm surprised he'd even do it for at all, even for a monetary value.
Right, yeah, if it's William Lane Craig, he won't do it at all, and it'd take
Yeah.
$1,000,000. But, if it's like back when he was. is that,
Mm,
like I said, it's just that it kind of, like, makes it harder to set these debates up. Because to be honest, before I considered Bart Ehrmann, I wanted to set David Wood or Mike Jones up with Richard Dawkins. But when I learned how much it would be just in the last several months, I was like, "Okay, this is off the table." Like, I was thinking, like, maybe 15 grand. It's a lot of money, it's a lot of risk because 'cause I've gotta hope that we sell enough tickets to cover that. Because we don't wanna, like, lose money on an event, like, we wanna at least break even, it's the goal. Like, 100,000, like, I just don't know how you do that. I guess you could do, like, a could maybe there are probably ways of doing it, but it's still got a lot of risk, like, there's no guarantee it's gonna work, so.
yeah, 'cause I guess that's on top of you funding their hotels and food and whatnot?
Yes, but also because it's like these are extremely hard events to, like, it's just not like a sporting event. People just aren't the average, debate, like a 2-hour debate, usually, like, the convention would be like, "Meh, $20." Like, on average, that's usually what they would be if you're talking about, like, the people we usually host. And so, even if they do a whole day's worth of debates, like 5 debates in a day, um, that'd be $100 per ticket. I mean, like, think about how many tickets so you'd have to sell 1,000 tickets.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Uh, so you could I don't know. And there's also yeah. So it's that can be a challenge. The financial challenges can be hard because the conferences, like, the vast majority of the time, they break even. And sometimes they're a little bit above, sometimes a little bit below, but yeah, like, it's just expensive. So
Mm.
fighting, money. It's almost like pro wrestling. JR had talked about, what was it? He's
JR,
like
like
a
Jim Ross?
yeah, yeah.
Wait, did you meet him?
No, no, but I listen to his podcast stuff
Oh,
from
okay.
time to time. He had talked about it's either money, it's either, like, they want creative control, which is like debating, that's not actually a problem for me. So in his case, he would be like, they want control over, like, the storyline for their character. Um But that's not it's not an issue for us because we don't have storylines, and we just take what topics they want, like, because
Sure.
so, I don't know, but yeah, it was cash and creative, that's what he said anyway. But, so I'd say for us, it's more like cash and conflicts. Yeah.
Mm. What would you say is your favorite memory of hosting?
If it's what some of my favorite memories are, like, I do love the new debates. But some of my favorites have been, like, when it was, like, an atheist, and a Christian back in the day, because that's what we only ever hosted that when we first started. It was, like, very, so modern day debate, we cut our teeth on those debates. So, like, those are most of the memories I have, and but, like, sometimes there'd be, like, a question during the Q&A that was, like, bizarre or weird. There'd be somebody acting weird in the live chat, and they would just keep sending, like, the same weird message or something, and, like, sometimes, like, all of us would be, like, laughing, like, the atheist, the Christian, me as the
Yeah.
moderator, like, we'd all just be giggling and just, like, when somebody else is giggling, it's sometimes contagious,
Yeah.
and you just so those I remember there was one with, like, Skylar Fiction and, Dr. Josh, Bowen, and, there was something they were saying that I just was like, couldn't stop laughing. Somebody in the live chat was saying something, like, in their questions for Skylar. Skylar's like, Where is this coming from? Like, what is this?" Um, yeah, those are just good times with people that I felt like were friends along the way.
Interesting. Okay. Have you yourself ever experienced something supernatural?
Hmm, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't rule it out. I just don't there's nothing where I would, like, have a definitive, like, case where I could, like, point to it and say, like, "I think I really did there." Like, I don't rule it out at all in terms of, like, could there have been, like, something supernatural I didn't even realize? Says it's not paying attention or something. Um, but I can't think of anything.
Cool. What is next for you?
Let's see. Right now, we are shooting out emails for Debatecon 6 this fall, which will be for sure in Nashville, Tennessee. That, Lord willing, like, that's we've decided on that.
Ooh.
So that's exciting, yeah. You were anywhere near Nashville?
I'm 3 hours from Nashville, might have to stop by. That'd be cool.
Cool, yeah, it's 3 hours is an easy drive, that's cool. And, yeah, I'm excited, though. It's the first time we'll do it in Nashville. It's also, like, been told that this is the place, the city that to do events. So, yeah, I'm pumped about that, and then I'm excited to stop teaching. I like teaching to some extent, but I'm also excited to basically I think this summer I'm gonna do full-time modern day debate because this last semester has just been too exhausting. I've been teaching since I got well, actually, I had a semester off for summer. No, it was fall. Since finishing the PhD, but one semester, and I'm like, I just don't wanna do this. I wanna do modern day debate full time, so
So, did you teach psychology or were you I guess you got your PhD, so you were like some kind of maybe
just
student
an
professor?
adjunct professor. Yeah.
Adjunct professor? Okay, cool, cool, cool. Okay, last question for you. What is one question you would ask God if you knew He would give you an answer right then and there?
Wow. Let's see.
Actually,
Oh,
wait a minute. That's not the last question. Well, that'll be the second last question. I meant to ask you this too. You have a Subway tattoo on your back, right?
yes, I do, yeah.
What's the story behind that?
It was just, I was in this, like, Twitter thread, like, sharing, we would share, like, silly links, whatever we'd find weird stuff on the internet, and someone shared this, like, New York Post article that was like, "One lucky Subway fan can get a Subway tattoo on their back and get free Subway for the rest of their lives." And I'm a big Subway fan. I've always enjoyed Subway. So I was like, "Oh, I'm doing that." And they were like, "No, you're not." And it was like a Saturday morning, and I just kinda felt free, I felt liberated, just in a good mood, and I'm like, "No, no, no, I'm really doing it." So I yeah, in short, I went and I camped out for 2 nights in front of this where basically the tattoo shop where the Subway block party was gonna be. And then, Subway was willing to let me be the first person in line, and yeah, I have a huge Subway tattoo on my back, and,
And you've got
yeah,
a free Subway every
yeah,
time.
which is cool. It's, although the funny thing is, it's like almost anything. Maybe I couldn't get sick of Chick-fil-A or Chipotle, but Subway, I don't know. You don't wanna go every day. I tried going every day, and I just you can get even with the differences on the menu is like, still approximately quite similar food. So, I'm thankful, don't get me wrong,
Sure.
but it
Did
was fun.
did you d when you go there, do you have to just turn around and show them the tattoo if you're going to,
No,
like, a new
no,
one, I guess?
they gave me, like I got, like, this gold Subway card. They sent, like, a sleeve
Oh,
of
that's
them,
legit.
and then so, yeah, so I don't have to show them the tattoo, so
That's
but yeah.
cool. Okay, now the last question. One question you would ask God if you knew to get an answer.
Oh, man, that's really tough. Um, uh, maybe something that would be, like instead of something like I feel like the profound, like the deep, meaningful things like God meant for us to not know. It was like some way of like learning and growing. Like it's good you don't know it at that time yet or something. Otherwise, God would have told you or something. But not to say I don't have an answer. It's just that like maybe like an interesting like trivia question that like would be like, oh, that'd be interesting. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It'd be interesting to like maybe kind of like it could even be like a deeper one, like, do dogs have souls or something? But it could also be something like, I get a kick out of, like, you could say, like, lifetime statistics. Like, I do wonder, like, when we get to heaven, like, will we know, like, how many times did you do this activity, exercising or whatever? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
something like that. I'm like, "That's interesting." Like, I like trivia and statistics a lot. So, maybe, like, like, how many ants were on the world or something. Like, something like that is probably what I feel like would, like, fit best for me. Maybe, uh, like, is there life, besides humans out there, like intelligent life? Something like that maybe where it's like it's not super consequential. Like, I
Sure.
mean,
No.
maybe it is, but not like in my everyday life.
Cool, cool. Well, James, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for taking time to do this. I really actually, I know the next Debatecon is gonna be legit. Looking forward to seeing it, but thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Devin. It's been a pleasure. This has been fun.
Free audio post-production by alphonic.com.